You're listening to Finding My Own Weird, where we'll follow yours truly on a journey to discover my own authentic weird self. I'm your host, Christine Lassiter. Joining me will be amazing guests who found their own formula and are living and thriving as their own wonderfully weird selves. So hold on tight. It's about to get weird. Did you ever watch those YouTube videos of the colorblind people putting on those special glasses for the first time? You know what I'm talking about. The videos that make you ugly cry. You can feel the first time they see that vibrant color and the world instantly changes around them. That's how I felt the first time I visited Portland. It was spring and there was just blooms of flowers everywhere, flowers I'd never even seen before. Color everywhere, in nature, on houses, art on buildings, and even in the people. Well, in that same trip, I was coming out of Voodoo Donuts, as a tourist typically does, and I had my little pink box. And I turned the corner and I saw this 3'6" man. He was dressed all in grunge black with black eyeliner and jet black long hair. No doubt a character. And he was a piece of that fabric of that first visit. That visit was when I decided I needed more color, I needed more vibrancy, and I needed more weird in my life. Now, about 7 years later, I'm sitting down with that character, performer, artist, Nick Sin. Well, welcome, Nick. Thank you so much for being here. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Christine. Thank you for kidnapping me for the day.
I literally just picked you up across from the haunted church.
Just follow me on Facebook after stalking me outside of Voodoo Donut.
That's how I do things.
That's how friends are made.
But it'll be a good friendship too, I think.
I believe so.
Well, so man, just looking at your bio and everything, you have done some pretty interesting things over your years. You've been on Jerry Springer, you've been on the Maury Show, you've done DJing and emceeing and art. You've done a ton of really awesome, bizarre, cool things. But I kind of want to talk about how Nick started. You weren't always this devilishly handsome Marilyn Manson impersonator and things that
there
you
was
are
that
now.
too, yeah. Once I was a lot of growing my hair out, I think that's when it started. So yeah, I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, and when you say you grow up in Massachusetts, everybody just says you're from Boston, so I just always said I was from Boston. Yeah, but I grew up in a small town, kind of blue collar, and obviously I was the only little person, PG, we're going to be PG for now, little person that I knew up until, I would say, high school. And, so I always just tried to do what I thought was normal, which is basically play sports and try to fit in with, just the average run-of-the-mill kids because, you're already weird. You don't want to be even weirder. So I played football, I wrestled, and then not until I think late into my sophomore year, that I went to an after-school theater thing, and I volunteered to help with the backdrops of the musical, spring musical, whatever you call them. And the director of the play looked at me, and she just had this big grin on her face, and I didn't know why. I just thought she was happy that somebody was volunteering to do the crap work, which is paint the backdrops and get dirty. And a couple days later, there was a casting list, and my name was on the cast list, even though I never auditioned. So that's what kind of really broke me into what was more comfortable for me and finding what I was comfortable with, because obviously I was not the star quarterback. I was not the biggest wrestler on the team. I was getting to be myself on stage. So that kind of broke me in, and eventually by my senior year, I stopped doing the things I thought I was supposed to do and was more focused on that. And I became the kid who skipped class and hung out, and we had a 6-pack between 5 guys in the back of a car. It turned into that. So that's what I was like, oh, this is what I'm better at. I'm better at being myself on stage and hanging out with people that the guys that are hiding behind the school in the alley, smoking cigarettes and not giving a fuck. So I was like, oh, this is, well, it's like an episode of Freaks and Geeks or something like that. It was, I found my misfits.
So do you remember the name of the play that she put you in, that first one?
The original one, this was a lady that was very eccentric. She was basically like a dance mom.
Oh.
She was great. She was great. But when you think of a high school play, you think of la-di-da, let's all be happy and dance around type of shit. No, she was set out to do, like, basically Broadway-style shows with a high school cast. So the first play I did was Titanic.
I was in theater. That's
Yeah.
not your normal, like,
No, that's not your
high
normal.
school theater.
Let's put some plastic flowers up in a well and have everybody sing along to "Let's Be Happy and Fun." And the second play I did was Les Mis,
Oh, yeah.
so everybody dies.
Right.
So basically, that's the plays we did. Everybody dies, so it's really good at dying. So yeah, it was always that. And so as soon as I got out of high school, you naturally think I got to go to college. And unfortunately, I decided not to audition or put myself towards a arts college. I wanted to go for psychology, which I don't know why the fuck I did that. I lasted maybe 4 months. And after 4 months, I was fortunate enough to know how to use the internet in the beginning of the social media days, which was MySpace, and track down Mini-Kiss, which was a all Kiss, all little people Kiss tribute band. And my parents were bugging me because I just dropped out of college. And they're like, well, you got to go play at the grocery store just like all the other kids that dropped out. Like,
Right.
we got to go mow lawns or do whatever. And I hooked up with the guys from Mini-Kiss, and, this is the AOL.com days and MySpace days, and sent an audition tape, which was literally a VHS tape that I borrowed from my neighbor, and sent it off. And about a week later, I had a flight to LA.
Wow.
So yeah, I went from my parents bugging me about, going to get a job to having a flight to LA. And it was, going from high school theater to here's a actual paycheck and a plane ticket was pretty damn cool. And obviously I grew up a huge Kiss fan. I grew up with anything that was shock rock and horror based, anything that was theatric, more macabre style. So Kiss was a big thing for me, Ozzy, Alice Cooper, stuff like that. So I did that for a long time, maybe about like 8 months. And then, I was still going back and forth. I living in my mom's house, my parents' house. And I went from broke ass college kid to ask my mom to cash my checks because the checks were piling up, which was, not a lot, but it was just enough to like, whoa, there's a comma in my bank account. I'd never seen that before. I never even had a bank account, so I didn't know what the fuck that was either.
Funny story about Alice Cooper. So I met him at a horror movie convention, and you got to pay to get your picture taken with the celebrities there. And we were dressed up because it was a horror movie convention. And you had to write on a piece of paper what you wanted Alice Cooper to sign on your whatever you had, your picture or whatever. So I thought it would be really funny to have Alice Cooper write, Christine, you're hot, because I thought that was funny. And when I got up there and I handed it to him, he just started laughing and he put, no, 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 Christine, you're so hot, Alice Cooper, and was the nicest guy, which everybody says, true story, nicest guy you could
I
ever
met him
meet.
at a wedding
Oh, that's
that he
random.
wasn't invited to. He just crashed it. It was the best.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was in Vegas, of course.
Right.
So he actually, he was outside of the door outside the chapel because he was doing a convention and everybody was stopping him for pictures. And somebody was outside the chapel smoking because it's a Vegas casino. You could do that. You can't smoke inside the chapel, but you can smoke outside the chapel, and spotted him and told the wedding party that Alice Cooper was outside. And my friend, who actually reminds me of you, hiked up her red gothic dress and booked it out down the aisle to go get a wedding picture of Alice Cooper. And he came in and goes, "What?" He goes, "I want to go to this wedding," because there's a bunch of weirdos like us. But he came in and he took pictures with the whole wedding party. It was great.
Oh, that's awesome.
He put his hands on my neck, and the guy was taking a picture, goes, "Choke him harder," and he actually did choke me harder. And I was like, "Oh, Alice Cooper's choking me. That's kind of cool."
Do you want to introduce your little friend?
Oh, this is my buddy. This is Ortiz. This is my little companion. He goes everywhere with me. And he just met his new girlfriend outside. So
Right. They were a match made in heaven or
yeah,
hell or wherever
until
they're,
he got a little too close and she tried to kill him, which I understand.
you know.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so I did mini kiss for a while, stopped doing mini kiss, kind of went into like rephase mode where I just kind of had to figure out something else. And actually, a funny story about we were driving here and I said something about Spirit Halloween.
Mhm.
Not until like 2 or 3 years ago did I remember I actually worked at a Spirit Halloween when when I got out of Minikiss. I actually worked at a Spirit Halloween for a while, and I was doing the same thing with the MySpace and the gigs and trying to just, before there was everybody on social media and every platform you can imagine that we have now, I was just trying to find a different gig. And I remember a buddy of mine back in high school was obsessed with horror movies and stuff like that, and dark art and tattoos and stuff. And he was always obsessed with a famous tattoo artist called Paul Booth, named Paul Booth. And so one day this ad popped up for a dark, macabre, metal, famous tattoo artist that needed a mini-me for a gig to pop out of a box for the show Headbangers Ball on MTV. This was the revamp of Headbangers Ball, and I knew by the description who they were talking about because it said New York City, and it described his character to the T. So I applied for that job or that gig, and it was just a one-day gig. And at the time, I was still working at Spirit Halloween, and I think that gig was maybe a day or two before Halloween. Of course, they needed all hands on deck because that's the busiest they're going to be. So I got the gig, and then they told me I had to come to work. So I picked the right option. I went to the gig, and I quit my job. And sure enough, it was who I thought it was, Paul Booth. And he told me I was the least likely of the people who applied for the gig that looked like him because he was bald and a little heavy set, and he had a goatee. And at the time, I was clean shaven, long black hair, no tattoos, nothing. We were the opposite. So he just said that he liked my look. So we did about, I'd say about 4 to 5 hours of makeup to make me look even anything like him. So he did a ball cap, and he had dreadlocks, and so bald with the dreads, and he had tattoos on his head. So he had to have somebody tattoo his tattoos on me, then put facial hair on me. And then after the gig, he said, "You want to come back tomorrow and hang out?" And I said, "Yeah, cool. I got nothing to do."
Right.
So then from there, I just kind of started hanging out with him and started networking down in New York City. And maybe 2, 3 months later, I was packing 2 suitcases and moving down to New York City based off of quitting a job at Spirit Halloween, which, I could still be at Spirit Halloween today if I didn't take that gig. I could still be telling girls which nurse size fits them best, which naughty nurse costume is the best one this year. So yeah, I didn't remember that until really recently when like all those little Spirit Halloween memes were coming up. Well, every vacant thing was a Spirit Halloween.
Right?
Those stupid memes that you see. And I was like, why is that so familiar? I was like, oh fuck, I used to work for a Spirit Halloween, and I quit my job and kind of turned my whole life around based off of not showing up for work one day. And I took a train down to New York City from where I lived, which is about a 4-hour train ride. I used to sleep in the back of my car a lot from at the train station because eventually I got a full time gig in New York City, even though I wasn't living in New York City. So I would take the train every day going up back upstate, and sometimes by the time I got home off the train, it wasn't even worth it to drive another hour back to my parents' house because I would have to drive back 2 hours later, and so I would just sleep in my car. And eventually, somebody found out that I was taking a train 2 3 hours to take a train 2 3 hours back, and then sleeping in my car. And it was just in the middle of nowhere. The train station let you off in the middle of nowhere. It was just when you get to upstate New York, there's just farms and little hole in the wall towns. Everybody just thinks New York is New York City, but no, when you get up there, it gets really rural really quick.
Right.
There's nothing for miles. So I would just sleep in the back of my car. And then finally, somebody figured out that I was doing that, and just not even wasting my gas, not even wasting my energy, and just putting a blanket in the back of the car. And then I got the gig at a club called The Box. And at the time, The Box was where all the A-listers used to hang out. So that was pretty cool. And that's when the Minnie Marilyn Manson stuff started.
So is that something that somebody suggested to you, or you
I
decided
lied.
you lied?
I lied. I said I did it. Uh, I was underage drinking at a bar with my buddies, and obviously I had the Paul Booth connection. And I was starting to network a little bit, and that's where the Nixon name came in. And somebody knew me from those parties. Actually, somebody who was scouting talent knew me from one of Paul's parties and called me and said, "Hey, I'm scouting talent for an up and coming A-lister nightclub. To sit down was a couple $1,000, and there was a minimum to buy 2 or 3 bottles, which was another couple of $1,000. So just to sit down alone was $3,000. Um, so I started working there. Well, before I started working there, this guy called me from knowing me from Paul Booth, which from Spirit Halloween. He didn't know me from Spirit Halloween. He knew me from Paul Booth. Go figure. Um, so he called me and said, "Hey, they're looking for like a mini thing, like a mini parody." And he wanted originally Mini Kiss. I said, "Well, we can't do Mini Kiss with one guy. It doesn't really make sense." So he said, "Well, what else can you do?" And this is the funny part. I lied. I said, "Mini Ozzy."
Okay.
I said, "Mini Alice Cooper."
Uh-huh.
It was back to Alice Cooper again. And, and before I hung up, we were about to hang up, and I said, "Oh, I'm Minnie Manson." And about maybe 30 minutes later, I got a phone call back. Said, "Okay, we'll see you on Tuesday as Minnie Manson." And I think it was a Thursday. And I went, "Oh, fuck." So I had to come up with something
Right.
because I lied and I said I did it. And I remember my brother had a pair of contacts, the whiteout contacts.
Mhm.
I stole his contacts, and I chopped up my Mini Kiss costume, turned it into a Minnie Manson costume, and here it was. And then they're like, "Okay, I guess you're hired." So I think they originally wanted me to come back a week later so they could work out the tech and all the lights and stuff like that. And I was like, "Well, I live in Massachusetts and I came down here for this," so they had no choice but to put me in the show because they felt bad that I came all that way to audition. So they put me in the show that night, and then as I was there and as I stayed there, the longer I stayed there, the more stuff they found for me to do. Anytime there was a costume, anytime something I could fit in, and they would have group numbers. It was more like kind of like an off Broadway raunchy cabaret show. And they would have dancers and a MC that sang and a live band. So we would have to consistently switch up the stuff because we had a lot of people that would come on a nightly basis. And if it was Halloween or Christmas or whatever occasion it was, they would switch up. And just like the Jerry Springer thing, they're like, well, we need a leprechaun. So you're hired for that. And next week we need a devil for the Halloween number. So you're hired for that. And so I had a whole wardrobe of costumes just based off of anything that you could think of. And I basically wrote that out until the recession.
Did you ever get to meet Marilyn Manson?
I did. I met him a few times. And the first time I met him, he was in like this backstage area and he was like, oh, it's you. And I was like, oh, it's you. So we kind of met and he knew about me, and which I was terrified of because I thought he would give me a cease and desist. I thought he would not let me do the act anymore, but
Right.
he was all about it. And I actually, there's actually a couple pictures of him and I on the internet, and he whispered in my ear, he goes, I hate fucking taking pictures. I was like, yeah, me too. But I got the biggest shit-eating grin on my face as I was doing it. Yeah, me too. I fucking hate taking pictures. But I'm like, I was so excited. But yeah, we met a few times. Last time I met him, I was up for about 4 days. So let's put it that way.
Wow.
He was fun to hang out with. And this is like right after he did Dope Show and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So he was in a pretty good prime.
Yeah, that's pinnacle.
Yeah, it's like right after he did all that stuff. So he was still in his prime before he got to like the crazy partying stage. Then I got into the crazy partying stage. See how that all works? Method acting
Right. At its finest.
at its finest. Yes.
So after you
yeah,
did
it was fun.
yeah, after you did Maryland, I mean, what were the next things you had coming up?
Well, because I was in New York City and I was networking, started hanging out with a lot of burlesque and sideshow and variety performers. So across the street from the box in the Lower East Side, there was a nightclub that's still there called the Slipper Room. And that was kind of like the hangout spot slash performing spot of like I wanted to say lowbrow, but it was, it was a very small room with a stage that was maybe a foot and a half tall. But it was very classic. It was tin ceilings and old wood bar and old theater seats that were just randomly placed around. So I'd hang out there, and that's where I met a lot of the more local, everyday, carrying a bag, gig to gig to gig performers. And I met a lot of people from Coney Island, which obviously for me, knowing the history of, freak show and stuff like that was super enticing for me to go down there. I didn't know Coney Island was a 2.5 hour train ride. There's that damn train again
Oh,
that
yeah.
keeps showing up in my life that takes forever. But I went down there and they offered me a job. But originally they wanted me to just be what's called a barker. And in a sideshow, a barker is somebody who sits outside and draws a crowd in.
Mhm.
But I wasn't going to be the barker. I was going to be the barker's intern or apprentice. So they basically made me stand outside. And I don't know if you've ever been to Coney Island, but it's pretty rough. It's a rough part of town. So they used to give me a baseball bat, and that was my prop. That was my cane. And so I would sit outside with a baseball bat, and thankfully I never had to use it, but there's a couple times I thought I did. So basically they wanted me to be like the draw of the outside stage for people to come in to see the freak show. And eventually that kind of got old, and a couple of the guys that worked on the inside, the guys that were in the show, the guys that did human blockhead and the stunts that I wanted to do, started teaching me stuff. So the guy who taught me, his name is Donnie Vomit. Pleasant name.
Lovely name.
That's pleasant,
Family name, right?
Yeah, that's how I introduced him to my mom. This is Donnie Vomit. he just said, "Well, I know you want to be on the inside, but the director of the show wants you to be on the outside." So whenever I'd have breaks and we'd have a beer after the show, they would start teaching me stuff. So they taught me blockhead first, which is how to put nails up your nose.
Oh,
Huh. Never put a nail up your nose?
well, not on purpose.
Oh. There's a lot of things I haven't done on purpose too that I got paid for. So they taught me that. They taught me some other stuff, but eventually it was kind of like they wanted me to be in the show, but everybody else already kind of filled the roles of what was already being practiced in the modern 10-to-1 sideshow, which is, fire, blockhead, the electric act, the bendy act, the snake act, whatever you can come up with. But nobody was doing straitjacket escape or escape acts. And me having problems all my life finding things that fit me, I was like, where the fuck am I going to find a straitjacket? And he took my measurements. Donnie did. He took my measurements. And a couple weeks later, he sent them off to a buddy of his that did custom leather work and stuff like that. It's made out of canvas, like almost like canvas that you paint on. So it's made out of canvas. So he got me a custom straitjacket. And I still have that straitjacket to this day, and I still perform in that straitjacket to this day.
Well, not everybody can say they have a custom. I
Custom.
mean, usually your straitjackets are off the rack. They're not. They're not
I
custom.
mean, you can. It depends on what store you're at. I have seen certain stores. But yeah, I have a straitjacket that's custom made from Coney Island that you may have seen on the show Oddities.
Yeah.
I was on the first episode of Oddities before it was a show. They were filming a pilot, so they didn't know if the show was going to get picked up. And if you watch the show that day, I'm still in the original opening credits to get out of the straitjacket. I just happened to show up that day with my straitjacket. So
Coincidence.
what a coincidence. I was just out browsing around for a coffin, and I just happened to have my straitjacket. How weird. How low east side of New York are you that you're just walking around with a straitjacket buying a casket?
Well, luckily, New York, like Portland, you can walk around with a straitjacket and nobody's going to bat an eye.
You used to. You used to be able to. I'm not sure anymore. I haven't been back in 10 years. I want to go back, but everybody tells me it's different. And like Portland's different too. But back then, there was more your mom and pop trinket shops that would have weird stuff like that. More oddity stores. And that show actually, I think that show lasted like 14 seasons and it had some spin-offs. They had a San Francisco version and an LA version, I believe. So it did pretty well.
But did you ever have, when you were doing that act, did you ever have any times where you couldn't escape?
Yeah. Couple. And a couple times. So when I do that act, I usually do it upside down. So one time I did it upside down and I used the wrong material and I fell. Luckily, I wasn't too far up. I was only about 3 or 4 feet up, and the material broke. Not the straitjacket. The material I was hanging from broke. That was pretty embarrassing. Not as bad as it could have been. And then there was another time which was really embarrassing, which is a time I was doing a street fair with another performer who I thought was. So when you do a straitjacket act, obviously you cannot put yourself in a straitjacket. You need assistance.
Right.
And I thought this performer who worked in a sideshow was more than capable of knowing how to put somebody in a straitjacket, so I just assumed. And we were doing this little street fair in Little Italy in New York. It was like, we had this little tent, and he would do a couple acts, and I would do a couple acts. And whoever walked in the tent got a little show. And then we'd put a tip bucket out or something like that. Well, he did my straitjacket, but he did it to the point where I think he put one of my back buckles to my crotch buckle, which meant I had to put my leg through that opening, which is not what you're supposed to do. And we had about maybe 2 to 3 people in the tent, and I think it was just a family, a mom and
Mhm.
a dad, and maybe 11-year-old girl that was sitting in that tent. And I got stuck for about 20 minutes,
Oh, man.
and I wasn't even upside down. I was just awkwardly just standing on the stage who couldn't get out because I couldn't get my leg through this opening that was supposed to not be what it is. And I remember just looking at the guy, and he's like, "What's wrong? Just what's the deal? This is the act." I'm like, "This is not the fucking act, dude. You screwed it up because it's basic. It's basically like doing a belt buckle.
Right.
But if you do your belt buckle to your say if you're wearing a collar or something,
Right.
if you do your belt buckle to your collar and try to get out of it, it's gonna get a little
Mm.
complicated, like a choke collar. But yeah, he hooked me up wrong,
Oh, no.
and I don't know if it was more embarrassing that he hooked me up wrong or if it was just nice little family, mom and dad and an 11-year-old girl just watching me struggle for about 20 minutes. And I think I got that little golf clap at the end after I
A little pity clap for the
that's
blanket.
exactly what it was. It was just a pity clap, and my face is all red, and my leg feels like somebody like had it behind my head for 20 minutes, and my muscles feel like I just torn all of them out of place trying to get out of this damn thing, and then I got the golf clap.
They thought, "Wow, this is a really long act."
This is some Houdini shit. He's taking a long
He's
time.
dedicated to
Yeah,
his work.
I was just dedicated to get the fuck out of there. That's what I was. I was dedicated to get my paycheck and tell the guy to fuck himself. I don't think he did it on purpose. I think he just didn't know, and
Right.
I just assumed he knew because he was in the sideshow for so many years. I just was like, oh, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. Strap him up, and he strapped me to the wrong strap, and I couldn't get out. And luckily, I wasn't upside down
Right.
because I don't think I have a safety word. And luckily, I'm not sure if I'm lucky or if I'm unlucky that there was only 3 people to witness it because it was super embarrassing, and that was probably 20 years ago. That I still remember how embarrassing it just sit in front of a little modern New York family just watching me for 20 minutes. Just and I didn't know how to like stop the acting and just say this ain't gonna work. So I just did it.
Well, that's a testament to you that you're like, "Okay, yeah, this is where I am now. I
Yeah.
guess this is what we're
At
doing."
least it wasn't like a real Houdini act where you're upside down underwater
Yeah.
and all that fun stuff. So I just went with the straitjacket stuff for a long time and went off of that for years.
Well, when you were in the sideshow, I mean, because there's a lot of characters in a sideshow, did y'all ever go out as a group and just a bunch of, like, really interesting characters just go to an Applebee's for dinner?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was on a touring sideshow recently and I was touring with the Lizard Man,
Oh, yeah.
who's all tattooed green with the scales, and a guy named Shorty E. Dangerously, who literally just has a half a body. He's cut off at the legs,
Mhm.
like not even knee stumps or nothing, just right where his legs are. And he would walk on his hands, just like Johnny Eck from Freaks did. And we would go and we would tour city to city on a nightly basis. And it would be the green guy, the short gothic guy, and the guy walking on his legs. And Shorty, could only walk so far because it's basically like doing a push up every time he had to take
Mm.
a step. Um, so he would have a skateboard that he would put himself on and wheel himself around because he couldn't really do a wheelchair
Mhm.
because he didn't have enough. I don't know. I mean, he could do a wheelchair, but it was
Right.
easier to, it was more mobile to have a skateboard. So yeah, like we would get some pretty good looks, but there's a thing called natural born freaks, and then there's a thing called self made freaks. And natural born is obviously somebody like me or Shorty or anybody who's missing a limb or, you know, some type of
Genetically born different
genetically
or
born
yeah, or
whatever.
mhm.
And then there's the self mades who are the people who get themselves into it. And figure out, you know, either tattooing or a more extreme look.
Put the horns underneath their
The horns,
skin and
the big mohawks and the spikes and the painted eyes and stuff. So I kind of adapted a way to do both of those things. Even though when I was at Coney Island, they just wanted me just to stand out there and be like a little trophy. And I was like, that's boring. It's so boring. And it's so old school. In the old freak show days, they would just have them just sit there. They would literally just have them sit there like they were in a glass tank. There was a Siamese twin duo called Donnie and something. I can't remember. Donnie and Dan, I think their names were. I can't remember. Anyways, they were brothers, and they would literally just put them in like a trailer, and they cut a window out of the trailer and let people just look in the window. And they would just sit there and watch TV and play video games and do nothing all day. And they loved it because people would bring them presents and, like bring them candy, and they would just watch TV and do nothing all day. And all they did was cut a window out of them and charge people to look in the window.
so you and I kind of talked about this slightly on the car ride over here, but you did all of these things, these freak shows and stuff like that. What is your personal opinion on people making money to see somebody because they were born different?
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Now I got to drink. I guess it's your take on it. It's just, in the more modern times, it's somebody's choice. Obviously, back then, I don't know. Obviously, I know the history of it, and that families would sell off babies with deformities to the traveling carnival,
Right.
because if they didn't sell them off, they would either euthanized or given to an orphanage. And a lot of families back then, especially in the old Carney days during the Depression, needed the money.
And it wasn't the choice of the individual to go into
Of
those.
course not. No.
They were placed into those
Right.
situations. Now
Right.
they get hired.
Right. They weren't hired, they were sold into it. And, honestly, a lot of those people grew up in that environment, and they were always well taken care of. For what I can understand, most of them were well taken care of because they were the star of the shows. And I don't know if they were amazingly wealthy, but I know like when they started banning sideshows because they considered it pornographic, it was actually considered pornography, that they put all these people out of work, and these traveling shows had no use for them anymore.
Mm.
So they all kind of just had to figure out what to do because there was nowhere for them to go. There's nowhere for them to travel. There's no one to take care of them because they had no family other than the circus.
Well, and for people like the Siamese twins, I mean, that's not something where you can just, in most cases, go and be a
You could be a greeter for Walmart.
yeah. You're much more limited on what you're
Of
able
course.
to
And
do.
back then, there was no disability rights and
Right.
there's no social security and stuff like that. So if you had what you had, that was it. So P.T. Barnum, apparently, a lot of stories I've heard, is not the nicest person, but there was a guy that worked for P.T. Barnum called Tom Thumb, and he used to own, with all the money he made from P.T. Barnum, he used to own racing horses
Hmm.
and made a shit ton of money.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he had a whole ranch of racing horses. Johnny Eck had a mansion, and like all those guys had, for back then, a couple dollars a day was a lot of money,
Right.
especially during the Depression. So P.T. Barnum would bring these guys back when he could because his show was failing. There's only so many times you could see the elephant and the trapeze. They wanted to see the freak show. So he would bring these people back, and that's how the revolving door of that stuff was. And Coney Island had a lot of that too, where a lot of competing shows would go against each other to bring in the freak shows. And then when freak shows were outlawed, then the animal thing became the issue, I guess. I mean, which is, you know, a whole different subject.
Tiger King kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
he saved us during the pandemic.
Oh,
Who
yes,
else?
he
What
did.
else do we have to do for the first 6 months except for watch Tiger King?
I don't know, but when a world was divided, Tiger King
Tiger King brought us back
brought
together.
everybody together.
We all decided Carol was the enemy.
Oh, yeah. Well, obviously.
Poor Carol. Never mind. She deserved it.
And now a word from our sponsor, me. So about 2 years ago, I got the opportunity to buy the house that we were renting. And even though I was in the mortgage business at the time, I was pretty new to it. And I was scared. I was nervous. It's a big deal to buy a house. But luckily, my mortgage broker was my friend and coworker. And what he did was he walked me through this process. He made sure that I understood everything. He took care of things on his side. There were things that were going on that I didn't even know about. And I think that that's so important when you're working with a mortgage broker. That's why when I became licensed, I knew that that's the kind of mortgage broker I wanted to be. I'm here to not only help you buy a home, but to make sure that you do so in the most comfortable way possible. And I'm here to carry the burden of that stress for you. But I'm also here to make it a little bit fun because, let's face it, buying a home should be kind of fun. So if you're looking for a house to buy in Oregon or Washington, you can contact me at Christine at tworiversmtg.com, CHRISTINE at TWORIVERSMTG.com, or call me at 903-343-1370, NMLS 224-8608. And now back to your program. You did the freak show stuff for quite a long time. And then what did you do after that?
I still do the freak show stuff when I can. Obviously, the pandemic has put us so down on performances and what is easy to do and what's acceptable to do. And I don't want to say acceptable, but when you don't know, up until a year ago, maybe less than a year ago, that we even knew venues were going to be open.
Right.
So during that time, I focused more on visual, more creative stuff that I could do by myself and do with my friends, just like, the drinking and drawing type of stuff. Yeah, some mushrooms, I don't know. I mean, what else do you got to do for 6 months? So I focused on that and I found a space like the one you work out of right now that allows artists to come in and have their own space, have their own tools, and have 24-hour access. And it's called Afro Gallery. And we are based in Portland, and it was a non-profit, and we hold monthly exhibits with circus and art and all that stuff. And a lot of the guys that perform and do art, those monthly exhibits also have spaces that we rent out and do 24 hours, whatever we feel like doing. And we all have like little areas, but for the most part, we all just kind of hang out with each other and work off each other.
Yeah. So in addition to being a performance artist, you're an artist.
I guess so. I sold a piece. Somebody bought something off me, and that's all I
I
know.
think that makes you legit.
That's
I think
legit.
that is I think you can be an artist without selling it, but
Somebody
you are
bought
legit.
something. I don't know. Somebody liked a picture on my page. Somebody said, "Oh, that's cool." I said, "Oh, really? I didn't know."
You can put artist on your resume now.
Wow,
and,
resume. What's that? I never had one of those either. I just
I
usually
would actually love to see your resume.
somebody asked me to write a resume for like an actual job recently, and I had no idea what the fuck to tell them. I was like, you want me to fly?
You can just send them, if that ever happens again, just send them this podcast and just be like, here, look, this is what I've done. Here's what I can do. I can escape as long as somebody
I'm just
doesn't
going to
screw me
put the
up.
dog up and just say, listen, hire me. I mean, yeah, somebody asked me to write a resume once, and I was like, I don't know the last time I had to write a resume. I mean, maybe Spirit Halloween will take me back. There's really no resume. There's just kind of like, this is what I did. And the longer I think about it, the more I look back at like how stuff happened organically. Is just, I never really forced my way into anything. I lied about I lied about it, but I never.
Everybody does.
It's like that.
Everybody
That's like,
fudges a little
and
bit.
that guy that was like in Congress right now.
Oh,
Yeah, he
yeah.
he lied about a bunch of shit.
No, like there's literally nothing that he said that's true. Like nothing.
He
It's
just resigned yesterday.
yes.
But he lied about a bunch of shit, and somebody put him in an office.
And people wanted to keep him there even after it came out that he lied. So
But no, the only thing I lied about was putting a contact in my eye and dancing around to beautiful people.
well, and then you did it well.
And
Then
I
you did
did
it.
it. I did
So
it
I
as long
mean,
as I could.
I think that if you lie about something that you can pull off,
Yeah, I did as long as I could. I didn't have to write any laws
yeah,
or
you weren't
Senate.
making laws.
I
I
mean,
think, yeah, no
no,
harm.
no Senate bills, no laws. No one got harmed. So yeah, it was just when somebody asked me to write a resume recently. I went to a couple people that actually do know how to write resumes, and they're like, "Well, what was your last job?" And I was like, "Last
Job,
job,
job, job.
job, like a paycheck, like a weekly paycheck." I had no idea what the hell to tell them, which is kind of weird.
I told you this on the way here, but when I first came to Portland and didn't know anything about Portland, but just fell in love with just the creativity, the interesting, the weird. I will tell the story on here that I was here for work and was, the whole like touristy thing. I went into Voodoo Donuts and all that, had my little pink box and little East Texas podunk girl.
But
But I walked around the corner and I saw you and you were going into a club there right
and you
behind
didn't
me.
run?
I didn't run. As a matter of fact, because I'm fascinated by interesting people. I mean, like I'm truly fascinated by interesting people. And I could tell that you were some sort of performer and you were very interesting. But I was like, dorky tourist with my voodoo donut box. And
Mhm.
I could not bring myself to go into this kind of dark, edgy club. I definitely would have been like, they would have been like, what the hell is this girl doing here?
I believe you're
Uh,
talking about Dante's, yeah?
oh no, it was the one right behind the kitty cat
Oh,
club.
okay, okay.
Yeah. And I so desperately wanted to see what the hell you were doing.
Yeah, your mind would have been.
Probably been blown.
Yeah, you would have been a little bit over.
Oh, but I would have loved that.
You would have loved it, but it would.
But I definitely couldn't go in there the way I was. It would have been,
It would
I
have
would have
taken.
been mortified.
Yeah, it would
More
take.
for me. But so you do get noticed. I mean, I even watched you from when you were coming up to the car and stuff, and I watched people go by you and they would turn and look. And so you definitely get noticed when you're walking around. How do you handle that? I mean, I'm sure that's something that you've been dealing with your whole life.
Of course. So also Portland kind of brought me here for that reason too. I lived in New York, like I said, but Portland is a little bit more accepting, a little bit more what people told me, what I would imagine. Like I always feel like when I move somewhere, somebody goes, "Oh man, you should have been here 5 years ago. It's so much cooler." Yeah, that's how I felt about New York, and everybody's kept telling me, "Oh, it's so much cooler. You would have been going everywhere. Everybody would have loved you," which they did already, but they're like, "But 5 years ago, man, you would have been awesome back in the 90s, back in the 80s, you missed the prime." And so when I got to Portland, I felt like I got my prime here. I felt like I found the prime spot because people were early 2000s. But as far as that goes, Portland was a little bit more, I would say, less divided than it is now, than it was then, I should say. Um, but I always felt like I fit in pretty well, and I got to do a lot of business and other opportunities here. But like I said, growing up, I was the only little person I knew, and up until I was comfortable with myself, I always felt very self-conscious because, like I said, I always just try to fit in as much as possible because not only you're 3 feet tall, but you have long black hair and eyeliner. That's not where I grew up. And if I went to your home, just stay in hometown. It's not what I.
Yeah. No, you'd be noticed.
I've noticed it a lot when I was touring, but that was a different scenario because people expected that. But if you're just walking down the street and you're going to the grocery store or something, I kind of carry that self confidence from the stage to the street because growing up, I didn't have that self confidence and I didn't have a stage until I found the stage, or the stage found me, I should say. Um, so I kind of take that self confidence that the stage gave me and the presence of just in general the long black hair and the eyeliner and the leftover makeup from last night, which I don't even remember I have on half the time. My neighbors are terrified. I go take the garbage out. I'm like, what the fuck's your problem? Well, you got close makeup on. I'm like, oh yeah, shit. I still have like skull makeup on or something. But like I said, I just didn't know I would have that confidence to know that. I mean, sometimes I would say 80% of the time it's positive
Yeah.
or curiosity. It's just, but if you go to middle of butt fuck nowhere, no one knows what to say to you. You get some really interesting freaking things that people say. I had a guy confront me a couple hours away from here in Grants Pass, which is about 4 hours away in this little shithole town. Sorry, Grants Pass, but you are a shithole town. I went
Don't
into,
worry, we won't go broadcast there. They'll never know.
they'll never know. They're not going to figure that out. So I went there and I walk into, I went there for a tattoo appointment. There was this artist there that was doing a guest spot. So me and a girlfriend at the time booked out an appointment with this artist. So we decided to go down the day before and get a hotel and then stay for the appointment. And then, so we made a vacation on the Grants Pass, which is not something you should do. Anyways, so the first thing we do is when we get there, I was like, look, I need to find a dive bar. And somebody points us a couple blocks down, said, cross the track, 3 blocks down, cross the railroad track. So we do, and I walk in, and this guy, and the whole bar gets silent. The entire bar is like a movie where the music stops. There's like a screeching of the record, and like everybody just turns their head. And I was kind of dressed normal that day. I thought I was normal-ish. And everybody just stops, and I just go up to the bar like normal, and everybody just kind of slowly starts to chatter back up. And I'm like, oh man, I'm definitely in the honky tonk fucking local bar. And there's this one guy, and you could tell he's a town drunk because everybody knows his name, and everybody keeps telling him to stop doing whatever he's doing because he keeps fucking up. And this is like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so
That's rough.
Yeah, he keeps, George, knock it up. George, stop harassing the customers. George, stop stealing that guy's beard. Like everybody knows that George is walking around already drunk. And George makes eye contact with me, and the bar stops again. And everybody's like, oh shit, what the fuck is George going to say? And I kind of smile at him, and he gives me that look. That staggering, like Clint Eastwood look. And the whole bar stops. They're like waiting for us. It's just like, I don't know, like 2 fucking cars, like the last 2 cars at a demolition derby, He's kind of like that. He goes, what the fuck are you supposed to be? And I was like, my name's Nick, Yeah, nice to meet you. He doesn't extend his hand. I'm like, oh, here we go. He goes, no. You ain't gonna get away with that one. I know who you are. I was like, all right, George, what am I? You one of them Ewoks.
Oh.
And there was just this like split moment of silence, and I just fucking die laughing. And,
What a random,
but I thought he was gonna,
of all things to be just that he could pull out to call you. Just
yeah,
an Ewok.
I thought he was gonna say midget. I thought he was gonna say dwarf. I thought he was gonna say something really that would make me get.
He thought you were soft and cuddly,
He called me a fucking Ewok. You called me Ewok, and the whole bar went, ugh. And I just started dying laughing. I almost dropped my drink. I was laughing so hard. And then the whole bar was like, we're going to buy you a drink. George, go fuck yourself. And they all told George go fuck himself because I'm sure he gets told to go fuck himself every day.
Often, yeah.
But I had free drinks for the rest of the night.
Oh, man.
But I kind of broke the ice with that fucking moment because no one knew what to say to me. and no one knew how to fucking approach me. And then, of course, the town drunk calls me a fucking Ewok, so everybody that could hear it. And I had free drinks all night. I went back to that bar 3 times that weekend.
I mean, that's that sounds like a pretty great night. I think,
I had a
I
great
mean,
night.
you would be called an Ewok again to get free drinks all night, right?
Totally, yeah. Ewoks were cannibals.
Drinks are expensive,
9 grams pass,
Oh, yeah, well.
but, but Ewoks are also cannibals, so there's that.
I mean, maybe they're a little badass.
They were trying to eat the people in Star Wars. Yeah, the guy called me an Ewok.
Oh, God.
It's great. But there's many moments like that. There's many awkward, just like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I said that 80% is kind of out of curiosity or just a presence. That's there. But then there's that other 20% where you're like, I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. And for the most part, it's pretty positive, especially now that there's more social media and since there's all these little people shows, which I fucking hate, by the way. They're the worst.
Do you hate them because they're just dumb?
They're dumb. They're so bad. I was watching the Little Women of L.A. or Little Women of whatever, and it's basically like the Desperate Housewives, Rich Wife show where they all have drama every show, and I'm like, I just feel like that's kind of what everybody expects me to be because they watch those shows. Not saying I don't have my moments, but those shows are not really putting us in a good light. And there's a lot of those moments that I feel on those shows that are wholesome and they do shed a perspective, but not all of us have the same view, obviously. I mean, well, we all have the same eye to eye,
Right.
but we all don't have the same view on words and, like you said, exploitation.
Mhm.
I feel like those shows are more exploitative than being in a freak show any day. Freak show, at least I can dress myself, act like myself, and be
Mhm.
myself. That's some producer feeding you a line and saying, okay, we need more drama. So every time they have those shows and they have like the 6 of them all around each other, they're throwing glasses at each other and flipping tables.
I can't stand
I
those
should say
shows anyway.
maybe they're flipping coffee tables. They're not really they're not maybe flipping shot glasses. They're not really flipping anything heavy. But I feel like that show is more exploitation than being a performer. At least when I'm on stage, I choose and do what I want. That's driven towards a drama and must-see TV, which is basically what the Jerry Springer Show and all that stuff was.
Right. Well, it's funny how they do kind of put little people and stuff in these weird scenarios instead of like in real scenarios because
They put us all in a ball pit,
yeah.
like a Chuck E. Cheese ball pit, and they just let us go crazy.
Well, that would be better than the Real Housewives one.
I think so too. A lot more fun. But yeah, like you said, they all kind of go into this like drama, and I've been in reality shows that have forced me into little, oh, what's the confrontation? And like there is no confrontation. I'm just here. What's wrong with that? I remember I did like a Jersey Shore rip-off show, and I was supposed to get in a fight with somebody. I was supposed to stand on the bar drinking shots, and some guy was supposed to call me a midget, and I was supposed to kick him or something, or spit my shot at him or something like that. And of course, they didn't get the take right, so we had to do it like 3 more times.
You kind of lose your mojo after the first couple of times.
Well, I like doing the shots a couple more times, but
if they'd have been good script writers, he would have called you an Ewok.
they would call me Ewok. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the best things are the most unscripted. What? Oh, I had a weird night the other night. I went to the Penn Teller show, which I love the Penn Teller show because I do magic myself, but I just had this long night of just like in and out drama, and all my friends kind of circulated, like the cast of Friends or the cast of Cheers or something. Like everybody just kept circulating around me, and like all this weird shit kept happening. And then at the end of the night, I got followed home by this guy who was buying me shots, and not for a sexual reason or not for like profiting me or not. He just followed me home. So I hid in that church the church across the street. So I hid in the church for a while. But I was like, man, if this is a reality show, just basically follow me around, which I've tried to pitch a few times, but people like, we're just supposed to follow you around. I was like, just wait for it.
Just it'll happen.
Just wait for it. Just let me just walk down the street and you'll probably get about 20 minutes of footage just of that, especially downtown Portland.
Right.
But there's just always weird shit. And the funniest stuff is the most unscripted stuff, especially when you're on tour and you're in towns you don't know and they don't know. Oh, my favorite's when I meet somebody who goes, well, you know my friend John, right? Like, no, why would I know fucking John? Well, he's one of you. What
He's
of
a
me?
Marilyn Manson impersonator.
No, he's like 4'4". It's like, that doesn't even count. He's just short. Oh, well, you guys know each other, right? You know John. Fucking know John. Like, not like we walk around with antennas, like trying to find each other, like radar systems. But they always just assume. And another thing is they assume stuff because of those shows, which I think is hysterical. Because I will throw a shot glass at you. I'll empty it before I throw it at you, though.
Well, I actually have seen more little people here in Portland than
Have you? Let me know.
than I've seen anywhere.
Because
I mean,
because
like,
we're like chihuahuas, we can't be around each other. It's true, we can't be around each other. That's maybe that's why they
maybe
put
there's
those.
just one, and I just keep seeing, but you're dressed
me- it's
different.
me.
It's just you. You're
I
dressed
just-
different every time.
I dress up in drag and walk around just so you don't know it's the same one. Maybe that is why they put those little people shows on, because we can't get along. And that was another thing. When I was growing up, my parents actually took me to a little people convention. It wasn't a convention; it's more like a meetup. And the kids, they were kind of like cliquey. They were weird. It was weird. Like, you think like that's where I was supposed to make friends, and that's how I
Right.
was supposed to like get something of like a, okay, this makes sense. But yeah, the kids were like really cliquey and kind of mean to me. So I was
How
like,
rude! You can't even go to a.
I couldn't even get along with my own people. I couldn't even get along with my own Ewoks. I got kicked out of the village. Yeah, they were cliquey and mean to me, and my parents were like, well, do you want to go back? I was like, not really, because I already had my friends in school.
Right.
I wasn't like a total outcast. I had friends, but yeah, I went to like a group of other little people, kids about my age, and they were just kind of rude.
That just goes to show you that kids are assholes. No
Kids
matter
were
what.
assholes, yeah. The adults were being nice because I was like the new kid, and they were trying to force me to play with their, hey, show Nick the ball pit, whatever. They're trying to force friendship on the kids,
Right.
and then you already feel like an outsider anyways,
Mm.
in your own skin, and then you feel like other people that are supposed to be automatically your friends and automatically someone that you have an association or something in common with, make you feel like more of an outsider,
Ugh.
which is kind of horrifying. So I never went back. And then I met other little people down the line, and I could see how it gets a little cliquey. But a lot of us, of course, are in entertainment and are used to being the center of attention. So that's kind of what people, we all get like chihuahuas, I would say. I'm going to get in trouble for a lot of this. I'm letting all the secrets out.
The first movie I ever saw in a movie theater was Time Bandits.
Time Bandits is amazing.
That is the very first movie theater movie I ever saw.
That's a great movie.
Yeah. And then, of course, Wizard of Oz and all that other stuff. But
I do
Time
a
Bandits.
flying monkey act,
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I throw poop at people.
Oh.
I actually do a flying monkey act.
I don't want to be in the audience when.
I mean, it's
Sure.
chocolate poop.
Oh, okay. Well,
Don't tell. Yeah, it's
Mm.
chocolate poop.
Yeah.
I actually had people pick it up and eat it, which I think is pretty funny. I mean, not because it's chocolate poop, it's because it's off the ground of
Yeah, no,
a
that's
venue.
that's gross.
I
No
don't-
matter what. Yeah.
Yeah, you ate chocolate off the ground of a music venue.
Well, some of the venues around here, there's all sorts of stuff that's going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do a flying monkey act, and that was another thing which I kind of took to my advantage. Was obviously there's so many things I could do, like being an Ewok. There was so many things I wanted to do, but the costuming is the tough part. I found somebody to make me a flying monkey costume back in New York City probably 15 years ago, and I still use that costume on a monthly basis. But I wanted to do stuff like Gremlins.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
I've done Yoda a few times, but I have to incorporate it into an act.
Right.
I can't just be walking around as an ambiance.
Right.
I have to be in an act.
Performing.
Yes. And I like to like crossroads the act into more of an edgy thing.
Mhm.
Like I think when I did Yoda, I had somebody spray a bodysuit for me, and I had a lightsaber as the penis.
Sure.
Yeah, of
I
course.
mean,
So I did a striptease, a Yoda striptease, and I did a lightsaber as the penis. Of course. I mean, it's gotta be edgy, it's gotta be fun, and it's gotta be like a little mind twisting because only I'm allowed to get away with that. Uh, I've seen normal sized people dress up as flying monkeys and Yodas and stuff, and it's not the
it's
same.
not.
Can't do that.
Loses its magic.
Yeah, don't take that from me. That's all I got.
Learn your place. That's not your place.
Yeah, you got plenty of other characters to work with. Leave my shit alone. Whenever I do an onstage thing, I like to twist it and make it more of a story. And I don't like to use words. I don't like to use anything that anybody's ever seen before other than the iconicness of the character itself.
Mhm.
Obviously, you said Time Bandits, but there's so many more. I could do E.T., I could do all sorts of weird shit.
Yeah. It really is interesting when you can transform and be something so creative and interesting and
And the best is when you fuck up somebody's childhood. Because like, oh, I remember that. That was my thing. Like I could come out as a Teddy Ruxpin and then totally just make it horrible. Like you put a tape at me and I just start swearing. You know?
Isn't that, I mean,
That's
isn't
basically,
that what they did? I mean,
yeah, that is what
if
you
you put
do.
the tape backwards, I mean, that's all it was.
Then
It was a curse and,
there was Satan. A lot of Satan. Maybe that's what happened to me. Let's see what else did I, oh, I've done Chucky a bunch of times.
Right.
Like any horror movie villain, like Leprechaun, Chucky, and it's like all that stuff I get to work with. And I love doing that stuff because only I could do it, and only other little people of that stature could do it. There's a guy, Doug Jones, who did Pan's Labyrinth. He
Mhm.
was the main guy in Pan's Labyrinth. He's got this weird abnormality or whatever, where he's got extremely long limbs and he's got a really long neck,
Uh-huh.
and he's cast with everything. And I'm like, damn you. That's what I want to do. Because I have done a lot of special effect makeups, and I love that stuff when you get into costume and you can just play the character for a couple hours and no one else can do it.
Right. So do you still do some things like that now?
I do. The film industry in Portland has unfortunately slowed down. Like we used to have Portlandia. And
You were on that, right?
I was on Portlandia, yes. That was great. That was a lot of fun.
Oh,
Oh.
I forgot he was over there. That scared me.
Yeah, he didn't like Portlandia very much.
So did you actually get to work with Fred and Carrie?
Yeah, I did. I got to work with them on a couple scenes. They put me as an extra for a couple scenes. And then finally I got a line in one of them where they did a Weirdos episodes where they were the goth kids, where they had the goth characters. And there was an episode where the taxidermy got stolen. So they had to interrogate all the goth weirdos in town. And
Right.
I was one of the goth weirdos that they got to interrogate. And that was a lot of fun because I had maybe 2 lines,
Mhm.
and it was like, oh, I don't have to be an extra. I don't have to run around and eat a bag of Doritos for my payout. I'm not saying that, but Grimm was also here, and Grimm was great because they would find characters that could play more specific things, like I was saying, like
Yeah, Grimm would have been right up your alley.
totally. I never got casted as something like that though over there. But I did some stuff like some alien animatronic stuff where they had like almost like Elf.
Mhm.
They had like Elf type character for me, but they had the whole helmet. They had the whole mask as an animatronic. So, and the mask was so heavy that I had to wear a neck brace.
Oh, wow.
And they had to give me an earpiece to tell me where to go. Okay, turn right. Take 2 steps there.
That's like the Sleestack costume. He has mics inside there, his fans inside his
Yeah.
head, and he has to have a handler Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah.
like stuff like that. It's really difficult and really hard to do, especially because they would say the lines of what we were doing. They would recite the lines, and all I could do is just kind of bob and put my hands out.
Right.
And I was like, I hope that was good because I don't know what the hell just happened. And then they would show me the playback. They would show me the playback, and I'm like, oh, no, cool. And they're like, okay, let's do it 6 more times. I'm like, wow, the stuff is really cool. It's really challenging and fun to work with, but I definitely have more appreciation for it after wearing a 30-pound head on you. And it's loud.
Right.
When the mouth moves and the eyes move and it makes it smile and, the ears like wiggle or something. All that stuff is all motors and gears and stuff. So it's basically like putting a big RC car on your head.
Mm. Do you want to do more? You talked about me of doing some YouTube videos, but would you like to do more film work?
Yeah, I think at this point, with how the attention span is, like stuff like this, more short, no pun intended, no, more short stuff. I'd like to base it off of everybody now on YouTube is a home chef. Everybody now is an action figure collector or an expert on something. I would just want to find that little passion, which I think I know where I want to go with it. And I'm not going to say too much, but I know where I want to go with it. And I know the attention span, which is basically right now it's 7 to 15 minutes. Just make short little episodes about something I'm commonly interested in
Mhm.
and also have an excuse to do some road tripping.
Yeah.
Basically, you watch shows like Pawn Stars and all these antique picking shows, and those segments are so short but they tell a story. There's something interesting you learn about. There's a dialogue like the oddity show. Oh, I'm here to buy a two-headed goat baby skull today. Oh, okay. Let me show you one. Stuff like that. I feel like the attention span's there, the weirdness is there, and the story has got to be there as well.
Right. No, I think it's cool. And I think we are leaning more towards that kind of entertainment, which is perfect for me with my attention span and time that I have. And I love those little snippets of stuff. I constantly watch YouTube videos in my downtime.
Yeah. And especially when it starts catering to your likes and what you click on. Mine's everything from wrestling to how to use an air fryer and what happened on 91210 and one episode of Baywatch or something. I'm like, oh yeah, 90s nostalgia. I'll click on that shit all day.
Speaking of wrestling, one of my high school friends that I just interviewed for this, she made the famous Undertaker's hat.
Well, the hat.
The
The original hat.
the hat,
The hat.
the famous,
The original hat.
the hat,
The brim hat.
the brim hat. She made it.
So I grew up a huge Undertaker fan. And I remember when my parents let me finally paint my own room, I wanted Undertaker purple.
Oh,
It couldn't be just purple. It had to be Undertaker purple.
she was so disappointed because she wanted to go and fit it on him herself. She herself is 4'11", and
He's
he's
6'10".
ginormous.
Yeah.
And it would have taken an absolute ladder, even if he was sitting down, for her to be able to. But she wasn't able to do that. But yeah, when he comes out and that's her
The
creation.
original one?
The original.
Wow.
Yes.
That's probably in a Hall of Fame or something right now.
I don't know.
They have an archive of like all the costumes and stuff. I actually went to a wrestling show a couple weeks ago with my buddy's girlfriend who has no idea about wrestling. So I know a lot.
Mhm.
And all she knew was who's got sparkly pants and who doesn't have sparkly
Right.
pants. So I got to explain the costumes. I got to explain what the bad guy's costume was and what the good guy's costume was. And she was totally hooked. So once I broke it down into whose costume's more sparkly and what that costume is, and what that costume is. I never thought I would be explaining wrestling based off of the costumes. You see the sparkly pants over there? Okay, that guy's a good guy. Non-sparkly pants, bad guy.
Bad guys. Bad guys don't wear sparkles.
Yeah. And she was like, "Oh, I get it." She totally got the whole thing. And yeah, I had to explain wrestling to who sparkly pants is.
Oh, that's awesome.
And like, okay, that guy cheated on that guy's girlfriend, and this guy happened. She loved it. She was all for it after that. Sparkly pants. Yeah. So I have to, and it's just like everything else. It's stage, it's live theater,
Right.
and it's acrobatics, and so like stuff like that catches my attention.
Yeah, it's definitely its own art form,
So
so
and the Undertaker was my first guy that I was like, what is this? Well, and blame your friend. I'm gonna blame your freaking friend.
well, tell her, Brooksand, it's your fault.
It's your fault. And he is like this 38 years later. 36, sorry. Shit, I thought it was 38 for a minute. But yeah, I love stuff like that. Like I said, I went to Penn and Teller the other night, and I used to watch someone as a kid, like pretending to blow each other's hands off and throw knives at each other and stuff like that. They don't really do that much anymore, but yeah, I grew up with that raunchy kind of 90s comedy. I grew up on the East Coast, obviously, and stayed up every night to watch Howard Stern.
Right?
And I watched I pretended to be sick almost on a daily basis. So I could watch Jerry Springer and Price is Right. I grew up as like, we got out of the squeaky clean 80s stuff and went into like the raunchy talk show era.
Mm-hmm.
So to be on Jerry Springer 7 times was really surreal.
Yeah, and I just found that out about you yesterday
I have no idea how you found that out, by the way.
because I did my homework. I
Oh,
was
good.
digging around and
I
there's an article or something.
I gotta delete that.
But I haven't seen it, but I read about it. So.
My dad used to tape them.
Oh,
And
he was so proud.
yeah, so instead of hey, here's my kid hitting a home run in his little league game, it was hey, here's my kid in a wedding dress on Jerry Springer's show. I was like, yeah, that's me.
Are your parents little people?
No, they are not. So it's genetics, obviously, but just in any type of genetic, it's one out of so many.
Right.
I think, as far as dwarfism or whatever you want to call it goes, it's 1 out of 30,000.
Well,
And if I were to have a kid, which I do, it's 1 out of how many the person I'm mating with.
right.
So if the person I'm mating with also has dwarfism, the chances are way higher, and it's way more of a risk factor. If it's a normal sized person like my baby mama is, I get to say that because I'm Maury Povich, it's 1 out of 4.
Right.
So my child is a little person.
Oh, okay.
So he got the Ewok. He got the Ewok check mark. But if you see that show, the roll-offs, the 2 parents are little people,
Mm-hmm.
and they have 4 kids, and only 1 of those kids is a little person,
Right.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
They both got really lucky because, like I said, there's 2 dominant genes that come together. The baby's too small to survive.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you watch the roll-offs, and even the twins on the roll-offs, one's a little person, one's like 6 feet tall, and then they have a daughter who's normal, and they have a kid who's normal, and yeah, it's just kind of how the genes meet each other and how it happens.
DNA's weird.
DNA is weird.
Talk about weird. DNA is weird.
Going back to the Coney Island days, there's guys that had the lobster hands.
Mm-hmm.
They were called the Grady's. And like all of them were born with lobster hands and lobster feet, where their hands were fused together. And it was just genetically in the family.
Well, it's so cool to be able to just talk to you about this stuff because it's not something you can just bring up in normal conversation, like.
Hey,
You
buy me a couple drinks, I'll probably tell you anything. Obviously, I was curious about it too, not
Yeah.
knowing, because I just grew up just thinking, okay, I was just shorter than other kids. And not until I realized that other kids were growing, and then I was like, and then I was going to the hospital all the time, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, something's going on, because I didn't know how else to compare it.
Right.
other than what I saw on TV and movies. So I was curious too. I just didn't know the logistics.
Right.
And then when I found out, I was like, ah, it's boring. I wanted it to be like a mystery, you know? I wanted to be more of a mystery.
Yeah,
I don't
something
want to
more
know the logistics.
something more interesting, something more
Yeah, you
fascinating.
ruined the secret. You ruined the magic. Yeah, I mean, so I was always curious too, because my parents were normal. I have three normal, and I hate that fucking word, by
Right,
the
if
way.
there's no such thing.
There's no thing.
There's no such
I
thing.
mean, when everybody says normal now, I feel like that's more offensive than little person.
Right?
I feel like little person's offensive too. And also, when somebody wants to be a little smart ass, be like, "Oh, you midget or dwarf?" I say, "Oh, actually, I have achondroplasia."
Oh,
And
that'll shut them up.
they're like, "What? That's not a thing." I was like, "Actually, never mind. You must know better than I do. Sorry, I fucked up. My bad. I didn't know. I didn't know I could not be one or two."
Mm.
But they say that's not a thing, and I'm like, "All right, sorry." If I said something the other night at a really formal dinner, and I said, "So do all midgets," and the whole table got really quiet. And so I said, "You're not supposed to say that." I said, "Thank you."
So, do you think you're not supposed to say that?
I love that though.
They're not supposed to say what you can say.
Yeah. But they said, "You're not supposed to, son, you're not supposed to say that. It makes people uncomfortable." I was like, "Oh, fuck yourself. You want to see uncomfortable? Wait till I
Oh.
throw a shot glass at you. Wait till I flip this coffee table. You're going to see uncomfortable."
Well, if
It makes people feel uncomfortable when you, especially now, everybody's so PC.
right. Well, I think that it's every person is different. Every person is different on what makes them comfortable, what makes them offended. It's 100% impossible to please everyone. And that's
Right.
why being true to yourself, being your comfortable self, your true authentic self is so important because you can't deal with what everybody else is put on you as what expectations are. You can only deal with what your own person is
Right. And when you go back to what I was talking about with the confidence of being on stage and stuff like that, like not everybody's got that. And I understand that.
right.
And not every little person is running around on stage and being able to be themselves. And they still might be stuck in this little buttfuck town to get called names and have to be the token of the town. And not everybody's got that confidence and not everybody has that outlet. So yeah, I do understand. Well, we got to walk that fine line,
Right.
which is wh- which is totally fine. Whenever I meet another little person, I just assume that we already have this like, okay,
An understanding.
yeah. But sometimes like people just don't want to talk about it or be outgoing, or they just want to just be more reserved. And that's just, I can't just assume that they want to just sit around and talk about how they can't reach groceries all day, which is what I bitch about all fucking day. That's my new pickup line. And when I meet a tall girl, "Hey, you like grocery shopping?" They, sometimes it works. "You like grocery shopping? Cool, because I need stuff." I can't just assume that just because you meet somebody that's got a tattoo that all you want to do is talk about tattoos.
Right.
It's just
Although most people who had tattoos are
now
happy to
most.
talk
I mean,
about
I don't know. I was
tattoos.
just trying to think of something. I was just trying to think of something. "Oh, you got blue hair? Okay, let's talk about blue hair." You know, like, I don't want to talk about blue hair. I just got to keep that in mind too. That even though I have something common on, that's just genetically.
Right.
Doesn't mean I have anything personal in
Right.
common. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It doesn't mean shit. Like, we could just stand in the same room and just stare at each other and not, not know what to talk about, just like anybody else.
Well, if y'all did that in a box on Coney Island with a window cut
I
out
get
of it, I
paid a
mean, you
lot
get
more
paid to
money.
do it. So
They could be playing fucking whatever they're playing, and I could play. They could be playing chess, and I could be playing Game Boy. It doesn't matter. And we would have nothing to fucking talk about.
Well, do you have any events coming up that people could come see you at?
I do. I occasionally do Sinferno at Dante's, which is every Sunday. Occasionally.
Mhm.
Sometimes I have shows at Afro Gallery, like I said, that is off a Grand, and that is once again a non-profit.
Mhm.
So everybody who's in there is in there on their own dime in their own time. Well, I like that. Um,
Luckily, we recorded it, so if you need to remember it later, it's right
Dime and
here.
time. Sure. Um, and I actually have a show coming up at Raven's Manor on Valentine's Day night.
Mhm.
So I think that's about it.
No, that's great, and I'll post where people can follow you and can see the things that you have
You're gonna
coming
see
up.
a lot of pictures of my dog.
Well,
This
I
week.
mean, this dog's
You're
cute,
gonna see a
so
lot of pictures of the
it's really
dog.
okay.
Mm,
People might tune in more for that than they will for monkeys throwing
I'll
poop,
get I'll
but
get 600 likes on a picture of him, and like I'll meet like a cool celebrity or be in costume and all proud of it. I'll get like 35 likes. So maybe he should have his own Instagram. I don't know.
Well, I bet if we voted on that, there would be plenty of people who said yes.
He's gonna be the new Grumpy Cat. I mean, that's where the money is now.
That's right. I'll make sure people have links to everything that you're doing and ways to follow you and follow what you're doing and get in touch with you if they have cool projects that
Yeah,
they
mostly it's just Instagram and Facebook. I don't really do the fan page thing anymore.
Mhm.
So if you got to find me, it's mostly Instagram is a direct way. Just send me a picture of your cute pet too, and we'll talk about our pets, and then
Friends forever then, right?
we'll talk about Ewoks.
Have a beer and you'll talk about anything.
I'm easy,
Well,
super easy.
this was awesome. Very, very cool to hear all the things that you got to experience and got to do and stuff. So,
I forgot about most of them. So
yeah, this is awesome. So, thank you. Thank you so much for
thank you.
being here today.
Thanks for kidnapping me.
Anytime.
If you can return me sometimes in the next 24 hours,
Yeah, we'll see.
thanks. Just drop me off at the church like everybody else does.
Sounds good.
Put a little fucking 3 to whoever on my
Take you
neck.
to the fire station.
Sure.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
You know, it's funny. I can't believe how my life has come full circle from that fateful trip in 2015. Not only is Nick every bit as bizarre and interesting as I thought he would be, but he's also very genuine and cool. Be sure to follow him at the links below to see where he's performing or where his art will be displayed. And reach out to him if you'd like to collaborate on a project. In our next episode, see how Jasmine Petit used her experience at the porn store to be the best social worker. We would also like to thank our sponsor, Christine Lassiter with Two Rivers Mortgage. If you're looking for a mortgage in Oregon or Washington, she can certainly hook you up. Just check out the links below. And be sure to like and subscribe to Finding My Own Weird on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen for more weird episodes.